I don't think it's that. This has something to do with Savannah on a stalking type scenario. And that's why this is so out of the ordinary in terms of it not having been solved, because a lot of the usual causation factors for these types of abductions, seemingly it wasn't a kidnapping for profit. I said that almost from the very first day, that it has to do something with Savannah. Again, I'm being very careful here, not that she had anything to do with it herself or her family, but there's some stalker, someone out there that couldn't get close to her, so he did the next best thing.
You've probably heard the name Nancy Guthrie by now. But what you haven't heard is what retired FBI profilers revealed privately about how investigators would psychologically dismantle whoever did this. Today, we're going inside the FBI's most secretive interrogation playbook. The same psychological weapons they used on serial killers. The same manipulation tactics that broke the most dangerous criminals alive. And we're applying every single one to the Nancy Guthrie case. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this suspect has gone dangerously quiet, and what that silence is actually telling investigators right now. Here's what makes this case different from anything you've seen before. Nancy isn't just any missing person. She's the mother of Savannah Guthrie, NBC's Today Show anchor, one of the most recognizable faces in American media. Think about that for a second. Someone looked at Savannah Guthrie's mother, an 84-year-old woman living alone in Arizona, and they made a calculated decision. This wasn't random. This wasn't desperate. This was deliberate. Retired FBI profiler Jim Clemente spent years inside maximum security prisons interviewing the world's most dangerous offenders. His first warning about this case stopped investigators cold. They've done things that are horrifically worse than that. They do not care at all about other people. That's not speculation. That's 30 years of sitting across from monsters. And what those monsters taught the FBI is exactly what we're about to show you. Now you understand what we're dealing with. But to understand the suspect, you first need to understand the weapon the FBI built specifically to catch people like him. The FBI didn't always know how to read killers. They had to learn. And the way they learned will genuinely disturb you. Starting in the earliest days of the Behavioral Analysis Unit, FBI profilers walked into maximum security prisons with one mission: sit down with convicted serial offenders, build trust, extract everything. Jim Clemente lived this process firsthand. We basically built up their egos, telling them we wanted to study them, we wanted to learn from them. They told serial killers they were special. They told rapists they were fascinating. They told child abductors that science needed them. Every word was calculated. Every smile was a weapon. And it worked. Those original 38 offender interviews eventually grew into a database of 1,500 of the most dangerous criminals ever studied, each one answering 840 structured questions. Each session recorded on audio and video, each detail cataloged and cross-referenced for future cases. Cases exactly like Nancy Guthrie's. But here's where it gets deeply uncomfortable, because building that rapport required something inhuman from the agents themselves. They had to become someone these monsters respected. We had to treat them with dignity and respect. It is extremely difficult. It is very distasteful. It leaves a mark on your soul. Jim Clemente said that, a man who spent his career hunting predators. And even he admitted the process scarred him. Now ask yourself this: if trained FBI veterans felt that psychological weight, what does it tell you about the kind of mind they were dealing with? The answer changes everything about the Nancy Guthrie case, Because the FBI didn't just build a database of criminals, they built a precise psychological map of how predators think, plan, and ultimately break. And when we apply that map directly to whoever took Nancy Guthrie, a terrifying picture starts to form. The profile that emerges isn't what most people expect. You now understand the weapon. In the next chapter, we use it. Here is exactly what the FBI's psychological playbook reveals about the person who took Nancy Guthrie. Whoever took Nancy Guthrie didn't wake up one morning and make a random decision. This was years in the making. Retired FBI profiler Jim Fitzgerald has worked cases for decades. His theory about this suspect is one of the most chilling professional assessments we've encountered covering this case. This is something to do with Savannah on a stalking-type scenario. Someone out there that couldn't get close to her, so he did the next best thing and went after her mother. Let that land for a moment. This person tried to reach Savannah first and failed, so he pivoted to her 84-year-old mother living alone in a relatively rural part of Tucson. Now, here's what the FBI's psychological database tells us about someone who operates this way. And this is where it gets very specific. This person carried a grievance for years before acting. He escalated slowly from low-risk behavior to extreme violence. He studied Savannah's world carefully before choosing his target. He selected Nancy precisely because she represented maximum emotional damage to Savannah. He believed, on some level, that this act would force Savannah to finally acknowledge him. Every single one of those behavioral markers appears in the FBI's offender database. Across hundreds of documented cases, this is not guesswork. This is pattern recognition at the highest level. Retired profiler Ray Carr added something that reframes the entire investigation. It started out much simpler, much less dangerous. It was more of a stalking type of thing. And then it just escalated over time, which means law enforcement shouldn't just be looking at who knew Nancy. They should be looking at who has been orbiting Savannah's life for years, possibly decades. The FBI knows this, and they're already looking somewhere very specific for answers. Drop your theory below. Do you think this person is someone from Savannah's professional world or a stranger who became obsessed from afar? We're reading every comment. Now we know the profile. But what happened inside that investigation that has sources close to the case genuinely alarmed? The answer is more disturbing than anything the profilers predicted. Here is where this case stops being just disturbing and becomes genuinely frightening. 89 days in. Active FBI involvement, thousands of tips, 3 retired profilers independently analyzing the evidence, and a source directly connected to this investigation told us something that should alarm every single person watching this video. We got nothing. We're literally at the point where we're calling back psychics. Read that again. The FBI, the Pima County Sheriff's Department, 30,000 tips processed, and investigators are calling psychics. Jim Fitzgerald, who helped crack the Unabomber case after 17 years, refused to accept that framing. But even he acknowledged the unusual silence surrounding this case from every direction. The suspect has gone quiet. The sheriff overseeing this investigation now faces a removal effort from office. And the one institutional system designed to generate leads, the FBI's behavioral database, can only work if investigators feed it the right information. Retired SWAT Commander Bob Krieger, who knows this investigative terrain better than almost anyone, has been watching this collapse in real time. The silence from the suspect isn't confusion. It isn't panic. This person may have said, "I've accomplished what I needed to accomplish. I've had my satisfaction. That fulfills my need-driven behavior for now." That's Jim Fitzgerald's most disturbing conclusion. The suspect may feel finished, satisfied, safe, and if that's true, it means the window to find Nancy Guthrie using traditional investigative pressure may already be closing. Does the suspect's silence make you think he feels untouchable? Tell us what you think is really happening below. So where does this case go from here? The profilers gave us one final specific roadmap, and it points somewhere nobody has publicly looked yet. 3 retired FBI profilers, 1 retired SWAT commander, all pointing in the same direction. The answer to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance lives inside Savannah Guthrie's inbox. Jim Fitzgerald made this crystal clear. Go back at least 5 years, find out who sent those emails, see what the hell they were doing on February 1st. Not 3 months back, not 1 year, 5 years minimum. Because this kind of obsession doesn't develop overnight. It grows quietly, patiently, invisibly. The FBI has facial recognition technology. They have linguistic databases that can match writing patterns across thousands of documents. They have behavioral analysts who can reconstruct a suspect's psychological timeline, going back years. Every tool exists to solve this case. The only question is whether the people in charge right now have the institutional stability to use them properly. With a sheriff facing removal and a suspect who has gone completely silent, that question has never been more urgent. Nancy Guthrie has been gone for 89 days. Her family deserves answers. You deserve to know the truth. If you've followed this case from the beginning, drop an 89 below. Let's show this family how many people still care. We're not stopping. Autovex Crime will stay on this case until there are answers. Subscribe right now. Because when this case breaks, you need to be here.